So, what we're looking at is the Shimpaku Juniper, but we're going to be showing off today the Shimpaku Juniper. We're also going to be showing off the black pine. We're going to be, sorry, not the black pine, the Shimpaku Juniper, the maples, the elms, and the box trees. And I have plenty of all of them. Well, maybe not the box trees. I have 2 of those. But, you know, they're all fantastic trees, all great starters. If you've never done bonsai before in your life, these are all really solid trees to start with. You know, some are a little bit easier than others, but they're all pretty solid beginner trees. This is probably going to be the most complicated beginner tree, but even then, I hesitate to use the word complicated because 99% of owning a bonsai tree, and this is regardless of what tree you have, is honestly just watching it grow. So this one right here, if you're interested, this one is the maple. The maple is absolutely fantastic. So the maple itself is a root over rock. It completely swirls around the rock itself. The way that it was originally done is when the tree was much younger, when it was a lot thinner, they put it in a rock similar to this, where they cut a channel into the rock itself. Then they put the seedling in there, and as the tree grew, the trunk itself started to get a little bit thicker. Then it started to, you know, once it's completely filled the channel, because it still has to grow, it starts growing outside of that channel. It starts flattening out around it, which creates this almost octopus grip, this almost octopus arm going around the rock, and it starts growing like that. Now, the tree itself is only 10 years old, so there's going to be a lot more growth that's going to happen, and it's really going to start to widen out, and because, you know, it's trying to stay into like the center of the trunk itself, it's going to start flattening out around the rock like a much bigger. It's going to look really cool, and to be able to watch it grow like that throughout the years is going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, the maple itself, this is the Trident Maple, is an absolutely fantastic beginner bonsai. And the reason I say that is because it's very forgiving when it comes to watering. So if you water it a little too much, it's all right. If you don't water it enough, it's okay. And don't make it a habit. I mean, I'm talking about like every once in a while. Another reason is the branches are very forgiving. Let's say you cut some of the branches a little too short. Don't freak out. That's absolutely fine. The branches will come back pretty quickly. And so, you know, between the watering and also the branches themselves, it makes for an absolutely fantastic beginner tree because, again, it's very forgiving. So it's kind of hard to make a mistake with this one. The tree itself is $85, but with that, you're only going to be paying for the tree and taxes. You're not going to be paying for, you know, shipping. We're taking care of the shipping. USPS, priority mail, we want to make sure the tree gets to you fast, safe, and it doesn't stay out of the sun for too long. And on top of that, you're going to be getting care instructions so you know how to take care of the tree, and you're also going to be getting our contact info. So if your tree does anything weird, reach out to us. We'll get you situated. This is probably the most unique maple that I have right here because while the maples are root over rock, I feel like this one's rock in tree. So you can see, instead of having one of the, you know, instead of having the rock itself be the thing that the tree is going around, we actually have the rock going inside the tree with this one. It's such a unique, different take on the rest of the maples that we have, but I find this one to be one of the more interesting visually because, you know, not only is the rock itself going on the inside of the tree itself right here, but this one, they did the exposed root treatment, but really found a really nice thick root to almost make it look like it has legs. And you can see just, you know, like there is a hole in it. So it really gives it such a unique look. It is definitely the most unique tree that we have. But aside from that, this is a fantastic tree, root over rock still, just like the maple itself. But I feel like these definitely give you a clearer look of how you could do root over rock with this tree and future trees. But just like before, when it was a sapling, they put the tree itself, the sapling branch, into the rock itself. And oftentimes what they'll do is they'll put like some way to hold it. Sometimes it's, you know, like cellophane, sometimes it's something else. But they held it into the rock itself so that as the tree got bigger, it started to fill that channel up. And then once it kind of reached capacity, because of the hole on top, it starts kind of flooding out over that, over the rock and starts flattening out around it. Now, this one you're going to notice is a lot thinner than the maple itself. So the branch itself, the trunk, is a lot smaller. It's not starting to flatten out and getting as thick as the maple did. But this tree itself is only 3 years old, while the maple itself was 10 years old. As it grows, you're going to start noticing that it will start flattening out and everything. So this one does grow pretty quickly. So that's why we sell it at 3 years old as opposed to 10 years old with like we do with the maple. Now, as far as branches go, it is, again, still very forgiving. The branches do come in fairly quickly, but this one does something pretty interesting. This actually has 2 fun facts about the branches. First and foremost, if you cut the branch itself, what'll happen is 2 more branches are going to come in to take its place. So it almost acts like a hydra. Every single tree that we have requires a winter dormancy. So let's say you are able and are successful in being able to keep your tree indoors, right? You found a way to, keep it near a window, and you're able to give it 6 to 8 hours of full spectrum sunlight, and you're able to keep the plant hydrated and the pot cool enough so it doesn't evaporate too quickly. Let's say you're able to figure all that out. You still need to take your tree outside during the winter. And the reason, or during the fall and winter, and the reason why is because the tree still needs to go through a winter dormancy. The tree still needs to drop all of its leaves and store energy for the fall, or for the spring. This tree, however, doesn't actually need to do that. So this tree can survive without going through a winter dormancy. I forgot what the exact term of it is, but yeah, it doesn't require winter dormancy, which is absolutely great, especially if you find a way to keep it alive indoors. Now, it does do better in the long run if it does go through a winter dormancy, but it will survive a fair amount of time, years without going through a winter dormancy. Now, recommended, of course, you put it outside. It goes through a winter dormancy, but it's not necessary. Let's move on to the Shimpaku Juniper. Shimpaku Junipers are absolutely stunning trees, as you can see here. We have, so this one right here has a really nice trunk to it. Now, what you'll notice with some of the trees, the branches will start near the middle or the bottom, but this one we've trimmed the branches to where the canopy is only going to be up here. So it has a really nice long branch. Now, if you're not familiar with the Shimpaku Juniper, you probably know what it looks like. In fact, you ask a random person on the street, 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you, you tell them to think about a bonsai, they're going to be thinking about this tree right here, whether they know the name Shimpaku Juniper or not. Most people tend to know it by the Mr. Miyake tree or the Karate Kid tree. And after 1984, this, malls everywhere started carrying bonsai because of the Karate Kid. Now, I do wonder all the time how many of those trees survive to this day, because at the time there wasn't a lot of knowledge on how to take care of a bonsai tree. Nowadays, there's websites, millions of books out there, and then you could, especially with the technology we have today, you could reach out to any, bonsai streamer, you could reach out to any content creator, and there's forums and people online that all want to help. In fact, this has been one of the friendliest communities I have ever been part of. Nobody's calling you an idiot because you put your pot in a resin, your tree in a resin pot. Everybody will just give their 2 cents, and usually it's a helpful and kind information. So this is a great community. If you've never done bonsai before in your life, jump in, buy a tree. Don't be scared, because it's pretty easy. It's a lot easier than you think it is. But all that being said, the Shimpaku Juniper is honestly the gold standard of bonsai. I guarantee you 9 times, well, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 again, but I guarantee you almost 10 times out of 10, especially, for bonsai enthusiasts, bonsai collectors who have more than 10 bonsai in their collection, at least 1 or 2 is going to be a Shimpaku Juniper. And it really lends itself well to being a bonsai. And I say that specifically because when you compare it to even other junipers, like the Precumbens nana, or a wild American juniper, the wood is so much softer than those, meaning it really lends itself to be bent and shaped in any kind of position that you want. Now, a lot of the idea of bonsai, yes, is having a tiny tree in a tiny pot, but is mostly to give it the shapes that a wild tree would get in nature. So, for instance, a shape like this, where it's kind of bent out this way, and then being bent out this way, a lot of those shapes are inspired by trees that were growing And then there was, during like one of the, a big winter or something happened, and an avalanche came up across it. So it would bend the tree. Then as the snow melted, the tree itself has already gained that curve. But then, the snow melts, but the sun is up north. I mean, up north. The sun is up in the air. And so, yes, it has a curve, but all the new growth is going to start growing this way because the sun's up here. And so that's what this was inspired by. And then with that, if you want to get something a little bit more unnatural, you absolutely can. But bonsai is absolutely fantastic. The Shimpaku Juniper, of course, one of the most iconic trees. If you want to add it to your collection, right now is the time. It's $120. It's going to be free shipping with priority mail as well. And I know especially a lot of bonsai people, especially new people, a lot of new people to bonsai will see the tree start drying out one of the needles and they're like, oh no, my tree's starting to die. And no, it's healthy. So you'll notice right here, okay, you see, let me make sure, I'm a little bit on a delay, so I do apologize about that. Okay, so you see how that little needle's turning brown? So basically what happens is throughout the year, instead of dropping all their leaves all at once, they start turning one needle brown and then drop that and then grow in something new. And then somewhere else on the tree, they'll turn that needle brown and then drop that and start growing something new. And it just happens throughout the year. So I don't know if you guys have ever had like a short-haired dog, but it's very similar to that. Like throughout the entire year, that thing sheds. So it's going to be the same thing with any of the evergreen trees. So like the Shimpaku Junipers, the black pines, the white pines, they're going to shed, but they don't drop their leaves all at once. So just something to keep in mind for any evergreen tree. But even then, it still requires a winter dormancy. It just acts a little bit different. This one right here is the Shimpaku Juniper. As I was saying, a lot of people think that the wiring, it seems kind of intimidating, but I promise you it's not. And so with the wire that we already have it set up for you basically to start creating some of these fun shapes. And once you get it in, you're going to be able to start mending and bending the branches into whatever position you want. And you could do a lot with this. As you can see, we already started with the wiring up here, so it already has some fun curves. And then with the zip tie, that's just there to help it create a much more dramatic curve. But if you look up Yose-ue, what you could, you'll see like that. Well, that's the style of the of what you're talking about. So basically, what they do is they plant a lot of smaller bonsai in the same pot. Now, when you do that, it does create a really nice forest imagery. But the problem is, well, not the problem is, but like, the thing you have to keep in mind is you want to do all of the same species, because like, say you threw in a black walnut in there, the black walnut is known to poison the dirt around it, so only black walnuts could live, could survive around it. So it's usually best to just plant the same plant in there. When it comes to watering, that's going to be the thing that you're going to have to do on a daily basis. But for the most part, watering, it's pretty simple. Just keep an eye on it. Once you get used to the tree, you'll be able to get into the rhythm of it. But 9 times out of 10, you should just be able to look at the soil and understand what it most of the time you should just be able to look at the soil and know when to water the tree itself. If you're still a little new, the best thing to do is just rub your finger on the dirt, see how it pulls up, and that'll give you an idea. This one, well, let me do it again. But this one right here, it picked up a little bit of dirt, so it means that we're probably going to need to water it later today. But if you ever rub your finger on the dirt and it comes up bone dry, absolutely need to water it. If you pick up some clumps, you're good to go. Now, if you do want to keep your plants indoors, what I highly recommend doing is keeping it near a window where you know it's going to get 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. But even then, there's a lot of things you have to consider. You probably want to put a fan near it, an oscillating fan, and that's going to keep the pot cooler because there's not a lot of airflow, especially when the sun is beating down onto the pot itself. Same issue as being outside. No problem, and I'll just continue on here. But having that oscillating fan will help cool the pot down, but more importantly, it's going to start moving around the branches, and that's how the branches get stronger, is by having the wind blow on them. But even then, you have to keep in mind that sometimes windows themselves are often treated with UV protection, and the leaves need the full spectrum of the sun. So, you know, you could supplement that with a grow light, but even then there's a lot more steps. It's easier just to leave it outside. Now, most trees, if not all trees, like to be directly in the sun. So sometimes what people do is they'll keep their bonsai indoors and they're not entirely sure why it's dying. Well, the trees themselves, and especially the leaves, they require, you know, 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. There are some trees that do prefer indirect sunlight, but it's few and far between. A lot of those things are more like ficuses and things like that, more of the tropical style trees. But even then, a lot of them do require a fair amount of sunlight. And then from there, you know, if it ever gets too hot, sometimes what will happen, and this is, I'm talking about over 90-degree weather, what happens is the pot itself will oftentimes start retaining a lot of heat, and it starts baking the roots. And so in order to kind of combat that, you want to put the pot somewhere shady. Now keep in mind, I said the pot, not necessarily the tree. The leaves are going to be fine itself. It's just the pot where the issue lies. Alternatively, if it gets too cold, you're going to want to cover your pot in mulch. And because again, you know, the roots could freeze because it's outside of the soil. Or not soil, but outside of the ground. So in order to combat that, you want to go ahead and cover the pot in mulch. Again, just like I said earlier, the leaves are going to do fine. It's mostly because of the pot. If you're watching in Hawaii, Florida, Texas, Washington, Ohio, Virginia, or Alaska, unfortunately, I can't ship to you. It's a whole certificate thing. A lot of states are very, very particular about what plants go in and out of their border, and for good reason, though. You know, they're very worried about invasive species and contaminated soil. You know, one wrong, you know, something goes wrong with either like a bug that might have snuck onto the tree or soil that's been contaminated. It could wipe out billions of dollars in agriculture. And I like the idea of feeding people more than selling a bonsai. So I don't know where you're located, but I could at least tell you that if you're near the Bay Area of California, you could go to Half Moon Bay Bonsai. We're technically their shop. So if you go there, they have much older trees, like 20 to 30-year-old trees. They may even have older trees, and you could take a look at the trees there. I will say, though, the older the tree gets, the bigger and heavier the whole thing gets, because you have to have a larger pot to hold the larger tree. And then on top of that, it will be a little bit heavier, so you have to kind of plan out and coordinate the moving of the tree from their place to your house. I also do streaming. I also do videos for another TikTok channel, still dealing with bonsai. So if you guys go to Bonsai.With.Time, again, that's Bonsai.With.Time here on TikTok, go ahead and give that a subscription. We are so close to 1,000 followers. I'd love for that to happen soon. Again, that's Bonsai.With.Time. I'd love to be able to get my channel to 1,000 followers. We do a lot of videos about bonsai, you know, fun facts, care instructions, history lessons. So we do a lot of bonsai, you know, videos. If you guys are interested in finding out more, again, Bonsai.With.Time, give that a follow. Again, so close to 1,000. I'd love to be able to reach that subscribers.